On February 14th, a file appeared on the internet. It was 47 pages long. It contained spectroscopic data, trajectory deviation logs, signal analysis reports, and internal communications from 3 separate space agencies. It was uploaded anonymously to 4 different platforms simultaneously. Whoever uploaded it knew that a single upload wouldn't survive. They were right. Within 6 hours, the file had been removed from every platform it was posted on. Not flagged, not restricted, removed. Completely, with no public explanation from any of the platforms involved. But 6 hours was enough, because in those 6 hours, the file was downloaded, copied, screenshotted, and distributed across enough independent channels that erasing it completely became impossible. I have access to its contents, and today we are going through every page. 3 governments have been working to keep this file off the internet: the United States, the United Kingdom, and China. 3 governments that agree on almost nothing. 3 governments that are currently in various states of geopolitical tension with each other. They agree on this. That alone tells you what's in it. Before we get into the contents, I want to establish what this file actually is, because context matters, and because understanding the origin of the document helps you understand why it is being suppressed at the level it is. The file is an internal compilation document, not a single leaked report, a compilation. Someone, inside one of the agencies involved, assembled materials from multiple sources into a single coherent package and got it out. That takes planning, that takes time, and it takes someone who understood that the individual pieces, distributed separately, would be easier to discredit than a compiled whole. The document contains 6 categories of material. First, raw spectroscopic data from the ESO's Very Large Telescope observations of 3I Atlas, including measurement sets that have never appeared in any public-facing scientific communication. Second, trajectory deviation logs from NASA's Deep Space Network, documenting the 3 velocity changes with timestamp precision that the official tracking pages have never acknowledged. Third, signal analysis reports from 2 independent institutions, one American and one British, both describing the base 1-2 modulation structure and the dodecahedral geometry encoded within it. Fourth, internal communications between senior officials at NASA, the ESA, and the Chinese National Space Administration, dating from the first week after 3I Atlas's detection through approximately 3 weeks ago. Fifth, a partial transcript from one of the CSEP Review Board meetings. Partial because whoever compiled the document either only had access to part of it or made a deliberate choice about what to include. Sixth, and most significantly, a 2-page summary document that appears to have been prepared for a senior government official, not a scientist, a decision maker. Someone who needed the situation explained without technical jargon. The summary is written in plain language, and it is the plainest language anyone with authority has used about 3I Atlas. We are going to go through all 6 categories, starting with the data and ending with that summary. The spectroscopic data in the file is the most technically dense section, but there are 3 specific findings in it that I want to draw your attention to because they go significantly further than anything in the public record. The first finding concerns the surface temperature of 3I Atlas. The raw measurements show a surface temperature that is inconsistent with the object's distance from the sunday. At its current position, a natural object of 3I Atlas's size and albedo should have a surface temperature within a predictable range. The measured temperature is outside that range. Specifically, it is warmer than it should be by a margin that the data describes as irreconcilable with passive solar heating. Something is generating heat inside the object, or The object's surface is actively managing its temperature. Both interpretations point away from a passive natural body. The second finding concerns a specific molecular compound detected in the spectral signature that has no known natural synthesis pathway, meaning there is no known process, natural or human-made, that produces this compound. The data flags it with a classification marker that, according to a source familiar with ESO's internal documentation system, indicates the finding was escalated immediately to senior institutional leadership. The third finding is the one that the file's compiler apparently considered most significant because it is highlighted in the margin with a handwritten note. The note says simply, "This should not be possible." The highlighted data shows that the molecular geometry of 3I, Atlas's outer layer, is uniform, completely uniform, across the entire observable surface. Natural objects, regardless of their origin or composition, develop surface irregularities over time through micro-impact events, thermal cycling, and radiation exposure. The older the object, the more irregular the surface. 3I, Atlas has been traveling through interstellar space for an unknown but almost certainly enormous period of time. Its surface should be irregular. It isn't. It is as uniform as if it were manufactured yesterday. That is what the handwritten note means. That is what should not be possible. The trajectory deviation logs in the file contain something the official version has never acknowledged. Not just the fact of the 3 deviations, which independent researchers have documented, but the precise measurements of each one and the internal assessment of what caused them. The first deviation, the deceleration detected 8 days after initial observation, is logged with a delta V measurement. Delta V is the change in velocity, the standard measure of propulsive effort in spacecraft navigation. The log delta V for the first deviation is significant enough that, applied to a human spacecraft, it would require a substantial propulsion system operating for an extended period. The log entry for this deviation includes an assessment field. The assessment field contains one word. It has been partially redacted in the version of the file I have access to, but the first 3 letters are visible. They are U-N-K, unknown. The second deviation, the acceleration 4 days after the deceleration, is logged with a larger delta V than the first. The assessment field for this entry is fully redacted. The third deviation, the microcorrection, is logged differently from the first 2. It is not measured in delta V. It is measured in angular precision. And the angular precision of the microcorrection is logged as exceeding the tolerance of any known human propulsion system by a factor the file does not specify but describes as significant. Then there is a fourth entry in the trajectory log that has not been discussed in any public forum. A fourth deviation, smaller than the others, detected approximately 6 days ago. An additional microcorrection, more precise than the third, adjusting the object's path by a fraction of a degree in a direction that the log describes as further consistent with approach optimization for inner solar system orbital insertion. There have been 4 controlled navigational maneuvers, not 3, 4, and the most recent one happened 6 days ago. The object is still actively navigating. The signal analysis section of the file contains reports from 2 institutions. The American report originates from within the DSN analysis infrastructure. The British report originates from a facility I am not going to name because doing so would compromise the source who identified it. Both reports were written independently. Neither institution had access to the other's report when they wrote their own, and both reached the same 3 conclusions. Conclusion 1. The signal is not a natural electromagnetic phenomenon. Both reports use language that, in scientific communication, is unusually definitive. The American report states that no known natural mechanism is consistent with the observed signal characteristics. The British report states that the signal's properties are incompatible with any passive physical process. Conclusion 2. The signal contains encoded information. The American report describes a structured data hierarchy within the modulation. The British report describes what it calls intentional information architecture. Both reports identify the base 1-2 framework. Neither report fully decodes what the architecture contains because that task was subsequently assigned to the cryptographic team. Conclusion 3. This is the one that both reports flag as requiring immediate escalation and the one that has received the least public attention. Both reports note that the signal is directional, not broadcasting in all directions equally, directional, aimed. The American report calculates the signal's directionality and finds it concentrated toward the inner solar system. The British report calculates it more precisely and finds it concentrated toward a specific region of the inner solar system, the region that contains Earth. The signal is not a broadcast, it is a transmission, addressed to a specific location, and that location is here. The internal communications section of the file covers approximately 3 weeks of exchanges between senior officials at NASA, ESA, and CNSA. This is the section that the three governments are most urgently trying to erase, because it removes any possibility of deniability about what they know and when they knew it. I'm going to walk through the communications chronologically, because the sequence matters. Day 1 after detection. NASA's Director of Planetary Science sends a flagged communication to the NASA administrator. The subject line is redacted, but the body contains a single sentence that is not. It reads, "Preliminary data is inconsistent with any catalog natural object type and warrants immediate escalation." Day 3. The NASA Administrator's Office sends a communication to ESA's Director General. The communication is brief. It requests immediate data sharing under the existing interagency science cooperation framework and asks that the sharing be conducted outside normal documentation channels. Outside normal documentation channels, meaning off the record. Day 5. ESA's Director General responds. The response confirms data sharing has begun and adds one sentence. The sentence reads, "Our preliminary analysis concurs with your assessment, and we recommend immediate notification of the relevant governmental authorities." Day 7. A communication goes from NASA to CNSA. This one is more formal. It is framed as a courtesy notification under international astronomical discovery protocols, but the language of the notification goes significantly beyond courtesy. It describes 3I, Atlas, as displaying characteristics requiring coordinated international scientific and governmental attention and requests CNSA's participation in a restricted information sharing framework. Day 9. CNSA responds. Their response is the longest communication in the file. Most of it is redacted, but the final paragraph is not. It reads, "We have completed our independent preliminary analysis. Our findings are consistent with those you have described. We are prepared to participate in the proposed framework on the condition that all participating parties agree to coordinate public communications through a jointly approved process." A jointly approved process for public communications. 3 major space agencies from 3 geopolitically competing nations agreeing on Day 9 of 3I, Atlas's detection to coordinate what the public is told. Day 11. The framework is established, CSEP is activated, and the jointly approved public communications process begins producing the official version you have been reading ever since. The partial transcript from the CSEP Review Board meeting is the most sensitive material in the file. I want to be precise about what I'm sharing and what I'm not, because the sourcing here is the most fragile, and I am not going to overstate what the document contains. The transcript covers approximately 40 minutes of a meeting that, based on contextual references within it, took place approximately 12 days ago. It is partial. It begins mid-sentence and ends before the meeting concluded. Whoever compiled the file either had limited access or made deliberate editorial choices. What is in the transcript covers 4 topics. The first topic is the signal decoding. A participant identified only by a role designation, not a name, presents a summary of the cryptographic team's findings to that point. The summary describes the coordinate system, the Earth coordinate, the other 6 stellar locations, and the temporal markers. The room's response to this summary is not described in the transcript, but can be inferred from what follows. The second topic is the 1-4-month marker. A different participant asks a direct question about what the temporal marker means operationally. The response from a third participant is that the marker's meaning is not yet determined, but that its precision, meaning the fact that it encodes a specific date rather than a range, indicates intentionality. The word intentionality in this context means someone chose that date. It is not a natural phenomenon, it is a scheduled moment. The third topic is disclosure. A participant raises the question of whether and when public disclosure should occur. The response from the chair of the meeting, whose role is identified but whose name is redacted, is that disclosure is not on the table at this time and that the priority is understanding before communicating. The chair then adds a sentence that I want to quote carefully because it is the most significant thing in the entire transcript. The chair says, "We are not going to tell 8 billion people something we do not yet understand ourselves." The fourth topic is response. Whether to transmit anything back toward 3I Atlas. The discussion on this topic is the most heavily redacted section of the transcript. What is visible suggests significant disagreement among participants. The transcript ends before a conclusion is reached. We do not know what they decided about responding. We do not know if they have already responded. We do not know if there is already a two-way communication happening that the public is not aware of. That uncertainty is the most uncomfortable thing in the file. The final section of the file is the 2-page summary document, written for a senior government official, plain language, no technical jargon, and because it was written to communicate clearly to a non-scientist, it is in some ways the most direct statement of what is actually happening that exists in any document I have seen. I am going to go through it paragraph by paragraph. Paragraph 1. 3I. Atlas is an object of non-natural origin currently present in our solar system. It has demonstrated controlled propulsion through 4 documented navigational maneuvers. It is composed of materials with no known natural synthesis pathway. It is transmitting a structured signal encoded in a universal mathematical framework. Paragraph 2. The signal has been partially decoded. It contains coordinate data identifying 7 locations in our galaxy, including Earth. It contains temporal markers, including one pointing to a date approximately 14 months from now. It contains an observational record of human technological development spanning approximately 200 to 300 years. Paragraph 3. The same signal was detected in December 1972 during the Apollo 17 mission. The characteristics match on 4 simultaneous parameters. This indicates the current object is connected to or the same as whatever was present in 1972. This is not a first contact situation. Paragraph 4. The object's current trajectory, corrected for the 4 navigational deviations, is consistent with an approach to the inner solar system rather than a transit through it. Whether this constitutes an arrival or a continued approach is not yet determined. Paragraph 5. 3 allied and non-allied space agencies have independently reached the same conclusions. Coordinated information management is currently in effect. This coordination is stable, but has a finite duration. Independent researchers are approaching conclusions that will be difficult to suppress beyond a period estimated at 3 to 6 months. 3 to 6 months. That estimate was made approximately 3 weeks ago, which means the window the summary identified is now between 2 and 5 months. Paragraph 6. The final paragraph. It contains a recommendation. The recommendation is redacted completely, but the sentence immediately before the redaction is not. It reads, "Given the above, the question is no longer whether this becomes public. The question is whether we control how. They know it's coming out, the file says so. In plain language, for a decision maker, the only question left is whether they get to shape the story before it shapes itself." Now, let's talk about what happened after the file was uploaded, because the suppression effort is as revealing as the file itself. February 14th, 11:47 p.m. UTC. The file is uploaded simultaneously to 4 platforms: a document sharing site, an academic preprint server, a decentralized file sharing network, and a private forum used by independent researchers. February 15th, 12:23 a.m. UTC, 36 minutes after upload. The document sharing site removes the file. No explanation provided to users who had already accessed it. The removal is logged by 3 independent researchers who were monitoring the upload. February 15th, 2:14 a.m. UTC. The academic preprint server removes the file. This is unusual because preprint servers typically allow content to remain accessible while under review. Immediate removal without review period indicates external pressure rather than internal moderation. February 15th, 3:51 a.m. UTC. The private researcher forum removes the file and suspends the account that posted it. The forum administrator, reached by a member of the community, states only that they received a legal communication and cannot comment further. February 15th, 6:02 a.m. UTC. The decentralized file sharing network, which by design does not have a central removal mechanism, is still hosting the file, but the file's access links, which had been distributed across several social platforms, begin disappearing. Posts containing the links are removed from 2 major platforms within minutes of each other. The coordination required to remove content from 2 separate platforms simultaneously within minutes indicates a level of institutional pressure that goes beyond standard content moderation. February 15th, 6:18 a.m. UTC. 6 hours and 31 minutes after the initial upload, the file is effectively inaccessible through any of its original distribution channels. But by this point, the file has been downloaded approximately 2,300 times. It has been screenshotted. It has been described in detail in private communications across multiple channels. The content is distributed. The suppression failed. What the suppression succeeded in doing was preventing the file from reaching a mass audience in the 6-hour window it was available. The 2,300 people who downloaded it are researchers, journalists, and independent investigators. The broader public never saw it trend, never saw it surface in mainstream feeds. The suppression didn't erase the file, it contained it, for now. I want to spend time on the question of which three governments are driving the suppression, because the answer is not obvious and the reasoning behind it matters. The United States is the most straightforward. NASA is the primary agency involved. CSEP is an American protocol. The NRO's satellite repositioning is an American operation. The Review Board operates under American institutional authority. American involvement in suppression is expected. The United Kingdom is less obvious but makes sense on examination. The British Signal Analysis report in the file indicates that a UK facility was independently analyzing the 3I Atlas signal. The UK's GCHQ, one of the world's most sophisticated signals intelligence agencies, would have flagged an anomalous transmission of this nature through routine monitoring. The UK's involvement in the suppression indicates they are a full participant in the information management framework, not just a recipient of American briefings. China is the most significant because China's inclusion tells you something about the nature of what's in the file. The US and UK share intelligence routinely. Their coordinated suppression of sensitive information is standard practice. But China is a geopolitical competitor, a strategic rival, an adversary in multiple ongoing tensions. The fact that China is coordinating suppression with the US and UK on this specific file means that whatever is in it overrides geopolitical competition. There is only one category of information significant enough to make the United States, the United Kingdom, and China act as a single coordinated entity. Information that concerns all of humanity equally. Information that no national interest is large enough to contain. Information that, if released, would not advantage any nation over any other because it changes the frame entirely. Confirmed non-human intelligence in our solar system is that category of information. Nothing else is. Three governments that agree on almost nothing agree that this file should not be on the internet. That agreement is itself the most powerful piece of evidence in this story. 47 pages, 6 categories of data, 3 governments, 6 hours and 31 minutes. The file contains spectroscopic evidence of an engineered object. Trajectory logs documenting 4 controlled navigational maneuvers, including one 6 days ago. 2 independent signal analyses, both concluding the transmission is directed at Earth. Internal communications showing 3 space agencies coordinating their public statements from day 9 of detection. A review board transcript containing a chair's statement that they will not tell 8 billion people something they don't yet understand themselves. And a 2-page summary for a decision maker that ends with the sentence, "The question is no longer whether this becomes public. The question is whether we control how." 3 governments tried to erase this file in 6 hours and 31 minutes. They failed because 2,300 people downloaded it first, and because information once released follows its own logic. The summary estimated the coordinated information management has between 2 and 5 months of stability remaining. That estimate is now 3 weeks old, which means the window is closing. Whatever is coming, disclosure, arrival, contact, something we don't have a word for, yet it is coming on a timeline that is no longer measured in years. The file says so. In plain language, written for someone who makes decisions. The next video goes into the 6 other coordinates in the decoded signal, the star systems listed alongside Earth, and the one on that list that has been producing anomalous radio emissions for 11 years that no mainstream outlet has connected to this story. That connection changes what the list means entirely. Subscribe, share this file story with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment telling me which section of the document hit hardest. Because in 2 to 5 months, if the summary is right, the official version ends, and you will want to have understood the real one first.